right, hello and welcome to the Texas Association of Builders Zoom at Noon Virtual Education. Our session today is sponsored by Fox Energy Specialists. My name is James Rodriguez. I'm with Fox Energy Specialists. I'm excited to be here with you today to bring you this session, an exciting new path to Texas Energy Code compliance, House Bill 3215. The goal of TAB's education series is to offer an opportunity for you to gain new strategies and stay on top of the latest within our industry as you continue to adapt to the new circumstances that we've been facing recently in the recent past 2 years. This is the part of the script where it tells me to say something about us for 2 minutes, so I will try not to take up that much time. But for those of y'all that don't know who we are, Fox Energy Specialists is a independent third-party energy code inspection, testing, and HERS rating service provider. We service we service builders across the state of Texas. Been doing it since about 2001. And so all the information you're going to hear about today, we are on the front lines of this stuff day in, day out as daily practitioners. So if you have any questions about today's session, about specific topics encompassed in today's session, we probably have the answer for you, and if not, we can definitely get the answer to you in short order. Today's session, we'll hear from Mr. Steve Baden. He's the executive director of the Residential Energy Services Network, also known as RESNET. This session will focus on House Bill 3215 related to the energy efficient building standards that passed during last year's 87th regular Texas legislative session and the opportunities that it presents to Texas builders. Some highlights that will be discussed are Texas Certified RESNET HERS Raters, your key to taking advantage of HB 3215, what exactly is a HERS rating, and where to go for more information and the national implications of House Bill 3215. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Steve.
Can you see my slide?
Yep, looks good on my end.
Okay. Thank you, James, for the introduction. And I also want to take time to thank the Texas Association of Builders for two things. One, for hosting this event today, but also the leadership in getting this new innovative way to do energy code compliance. And also I had to tip my hat to James, who was also very instrumental in working to get this legislation passed. This is a landmark, and I think I'll talk about later what the implications this is nationally. But first of all, let me introduce RESNET for those who may not know. Well, excuse me. So what has changed with the Texas Energy Code? As James mentioned, Texas House Bill 3215 updated the state's Universal Energy Code compliance pathway using the HERS index for energy code compliance. I will go into this much more detail later and explain it, but I also want to state that besides a HERS index score, which I will define a little bit later, it also requires that the homes must meet some backstops that are contained in the 2018 IECC, or the Energy Conservation Code. So first of all, what is RESNET? RESNET was founded in 1995 as a nonprofit organization to help homeowners reduce their utility bills by making their homes more energy efficient, and to assist builders in marketing the energy efficient features of their homes. Our legacy product is the HERS Index, and that's what's referred to in the new Texas law. Well, what is the HERS Index? It's like an MPG for homes. When we go out and shopping for a new car, we're all aware of that sticker on the car that has the MPG. Well, the HERS Index is akin to that, but for homes, and allows homeowners, home buyers, when they're looking for a home, to be able to compare a home according to its energy efficiency. The HERS Index is the national standard by which a home's energy efficiency is inspected, tested, and rated. It is a simple, easy to understand system to compare the energy performance of homes. A lower HERS Index score means a home uses less energy. It is akin to golf rather than football. It is an energy use index, which means the lower the better because you're using less energy. A typical home built to the 2006 energy efficiency standards scores 100 on the HERS index score. That 100 is what we call the HERS reference home. A point change in the HERS index represents a 1% change in energy use. To the left, you see this thermostat, which portrays the index. You can see the 100 as the reference home. And let's say a home uses 30% more energy than the reference home. That would equate to a score of 130. Vice versa, if the home used 30% less energy than the reference home, it would be issued a score of 70. You will notice on the thermostat, there is no top and bottom. The score can go as high as the home is energy inefficient. I've seen scores on older homes that are truly energy inefficient in the 300s. And as you go to the bottom of the thermostat, you notice the 0. The 0 is what we call a net zero energy home, which means that the home produces as much energy as it consumes. And then as you exceed the amount of energy produced to renewables you will get a score in the minuses. And I've seen homes as low as minus 22, which means it created 22 times more energy than a home consumed. So what does the HERS index include and who can do it? Well, as mentioned in the beginning, this relies upon certified RESNET HERS Raters. These HERS Raters must go through a training process and then pass a number of tests created by RESNET. They are also assisted by what we call rating field inspectors, who are individuals who work under the leadership of a HERS Rater, but is able to do the testing and inspection process. So what is the steps that takes place to produce a HERS rating? The first is energy modeling. The HERS Rater enters information to takeoffs and to build homes plans into a RESNET certified accredited software program, and it produces a preliminary energy rating score. Then the rater or the rating field inspector goes out in the field and looks at the home. First, a pre-drywall inspection to actually be able to inspect and rate the installation of the insulation. And then it involves a final inspection testing, including duct and envelope and ventilation testing. RESNET has a deep history in Texas of doing ratings. In 2020, 40% of all new homes built in Texas were HERS rated. And hats off to Texas builders because of all these homes, of the homes HERS rated in Texas in 2020, the average index score was 58. That means it was 42% more efficient than homes built as recently as 2006. We also have a deep infrastructure that will allow you to meet the demand for what this code change will do. There are over 550 certified HERS raters and rating field inspectors in Texas, and they're growing more every day. And then we have a history in the state. Since 2013, over 400,000 homes in Texas has been HERS rated. This is a perfect foundation then for the new code. So the change in the code, as James mentioned, is that it does include now a new option for showing compliance, the HERS index. The HERS index provides a builder with the maximum flexibility in meeting a code. And we don't dictate what you do, we just rate and credit what you do. And I think there's a couple of things that Texas will be looked at by the rest of the nation for its leadership. The first one is creating the most flexible option, but built with a foundation of envelope efficiency levels. Also, what is done, which is universal, which follows up what was done earlier in the code cycle, was that it looks to the future. In other words, it sets a goal that in 2028, builders have to reach in terms of energy performance. But it also creates steps then that the builder can take to get that goal. And this is unique anywhere in the nation. And I think the Texas should be lauded and has national implications because this gives the dependability. You know where you need to go And there's steps for you to take so that when the final goal is met, you can reach it. So in Texas, there's 3 International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC, climate zones. For discussion today, 2 and 3 are basically the same and have the same HERS index score requirements. Climate zone 4, which is further to the south of Texas, has its own different scores. So what are these score targets? Now until August 31st of 2022, in order for this compliance pathway to meet code, in climate zones 2 and 3, you have to have a HERS index score of 63, and climate zone 4, 67. Now remember, of the 40% of homes that were rated in Texas in 2020, the average score was 58. So the practice in homes, many places in the state now, is well below this threshold. Then in September 2022, it goes down to a 59 in climate zones 2 and 3, and a 63 in climate zone 4. Again, well within what the average score in Texas in 2020 was. Then in September 2025, it goes down a notch to 57 in climate zones 2 and 3, and 61 in climate zone 4. Then after September 1st, 2028, the target will be a HERS index of 55 for climate zones 2 and 3, and a HERS index of 59 in climate zone 4. Now, these are very ambitious goals. It puts Texas in the spotlight of having one of the most efficient codes in the nation, but also it creates a pathway that builders can do it. And the scores are achievable, particularly when you notice the base in 2020 was 58. This creates the maximum flexibility. The state gives you a target, and it's up to you, the builder, to decide the best way of meeting that target. And there's many options to do it, and the many ways that could be most cost effective. And the best way to lay a strategy for meeting these needs is start working with a Texas Certified HERS Rater, because they can then show you the various options you can do, what the relatively cost effectiveness of them, and then you can make decisions how you, with your homes, meet that code. This flexibility is really unique across the country. And again, wearing my national hat, I have to laud the Texas legislature and the Texas Association of Builders for coming up with this innovative path for energy codes. I mentioned earlier there was some mandatory measures that need to be met. And these are: 1, the mandatory requirements of section 406.2 of the 2018 IECC, and that the building thermal envelope is equal to or greater than the levels of efficiency and solar heat gain coefficient in tables 402.1.2 or table 402.1.4 of the 2018 IECC. Whew, that's a lot of words. What does it mean in reality? The following chart shows what the mandatory backstop measures are. Instead of reading to you, I'll take a moment off and let you be able to peruse these requirements. Again, as I mentioned before, the HERS index option is the most flexible option and most cost-effective option for a builder in Texas to meet the state's energy code. But what are the other benefits of using the HERS index? First, it's a potential to reduce construction costs compared to the prescriptive code path. The rater will work with you on how you want to meet that target, and you can decide what's the most cost-effective way to do that. It involves third-party verification of the energy performance of home by a certified HERS rater or rating field inspector. And these energy efficient measures will help you address and reduce your potential callbacks, particularly on the rating of the installation of the HVAC system. Homes that are HERS rated are listed in the RESNET Appraisal Institute appraiser portal and has a potential to receive a higher appraised value. Because EPA recognizes the HERS index as a path to Energy Star, this gives your build homes the potential to be eligible for the Energy Star for Homes label. It gives you the ability to market the environmental impacts of your homes to consumers. The HERS report that you get not only includes the HERS index score, but it also shows you calculated energy use, energy savings, and environmental attributes that the home does. And this gives you the ability to market the environmental impact of your homes to consumers. NHB research has shown that concern over the environment and the impacts on the environment of homes is rapidly becoming more of a greater interest to home buyers, particularly the new generation of home buyers who are just entering to the market. This is an ability to be able to project to these your attributes in aiding the environment and reducing energy costs. And then it gives you access to all your HERS rating data through the National Registry. This will allow you can work with ResNet, and then that will allow you to be able to track over time how you've improved your energy performance of your homes, but also, I think also significantly allows you to compare what scores look like in Texas and the rest of the nation. Who can do these inspections? Another innovation on this part of the state of Texas is they actually have a state law governing who can do code compliance. This is contained in the Health and Safety Code, Title 5, Subtitle C, Chapter 388, which is called Texas Building Energy Performance Standards. Section 388.0024 defines who can actually interpret the requirements of the International Energy Conservation and Texas Code. And it defines the International Code Council. It lists some other organizations. These are legacy organizations because about a decade ago, all these separate code organizations merged into one organization called the International Code Council. So in practicality, in order to do energy code compliance in Texas, you need to be certified by ICC. How does this affect HERS raters and you meeting the rating index option of the code? Well, the good news is the International Code Council, ICC, has created a new certification called the IECC HERS Compliance Specialist. This specialty designation combines energy code knowledge required by your energy code jurisdictions with the deep energy efficiency and building science knowledge to direct the individuals qualified to conduct energy code plan review, inspections, and testing. So how does the individuals obtain this designation of ICC and comply with Texas law? The first one is the individual has to be certified by ResNet as a home energy rater or a rating field inspector. Then the person needs to be able to obtain the ICC certification as a residential energy inspector plans examiner. Then based upon these two steps, the International Code Council designates the individual to be an IECC HERS compliance specialist. So this, when you're looking at a rater to be able to do your code compliance work through the ICC, you want to ask them to demonstrate that they are an IECC HERS compliance specialist. Upon their designation, ICC offers a logo to them. And so you can ask for those documentation from ICC that they're certified. When shopping for a rater, you can also look and see who's eligible by going online at the ICC website, and they have a list of individuals who've been certified as IECC HERS compliance specialists. This is good because this allows you the comfort of using the HERS index score and also complying with Texas law that requires ICC designation. So what can individuals with this designation do? They can work with builders or code jurisdictions to perform energy code plan review, on-site inspections for energy code compliance, on-site testing for duct and envelope leakage, on-site testing for mechanical ventilation system, and energy modeling. And of course, all these steps are involved in a HERS index score. I want to laud again Texas for its leadership in this, the national implications, because it has given the Texas builders the most flexibility in showing them compliance to their energy code. It also sets some very rigorous energy efficiency goals, but it gives time for the builders and steps to builders to be able to adjust to it and have dependable. And as I mentioned before, this is unique. This is unique in the nation. And so again, I want to laud it. The other thing that's unique about Texas is that it's the only state that I'm aware of that actually has a requirement who can do code compliance verification in the state. And the good news is with the new ICC designation, you can detail and be dependable on who can do this work. This is an exciting new opportunity for builders. I encourage you all to take a very serious look at it because it provides, once you start learning about it, it will provide you the greatest flexibility to meet the stated goals, building the home the way that you want to build them. And then also there is a large number of HERS raters, and it's growing larger. Over the next year, ResNet is going to be working with the Texas Association of Builders of doing an education effort so builders can have a full knowledge of the potentials and how to take advantage of it. And then finally, I'd like to invite you all to attend our ResNet 2022 conference that will take place in Austin, Texas. This gives you the opportunity to dive deep into it in terms of what is a rating, what are the mechanics of it, who uses it, what are the benefits that you can get besides compliance to code, and then also what are the cost-effective strategies you can do to meet energy efficient goals. And for those who are not going to be able to attend an in-person event in Austin in February, in March we will be doing a virtual conference that you could view at the comforts of your home on your own time. For more information on this and on information on ResNet and the code, energy codes, and then the HERS index score, go to resnet.us. So again, I want to thank the Texas Association of Builders for hosting today's Zoom at noon, and then leadership in making this possible. And I review the audience for taking time from your busy schedules to learn about this new exciting opportunity. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions. And if it gets technical, I'm going to have to rely upon James to help me. And James, you can speak up when you want to.
Yeah, no problem, Steve. Thank you for.
So you mentioned the backstops from IECC in 2018. Does this give flexibility for SPF, or are the R values minimal?
James, you want to take that one?
I believe I'm looking at the chat, and that coming from Mr. Tony Wolf. I think he is referring to a foam encapsulated home. And it does allow for flexibility for that, because the backstops that are embedded into those 2018 provisions under this House bill, they also allow for what we call the total UA performance, or the total UA, drawing a blank here, total UA alternative, which is a subset of the prescriptive tables. It's an alternate calculator that validates either one of those prescriptive tables that are part of the 2018 backstops. And so theoretically, Tony, if you do have a foam encapsulated home that does check those boxes on the total UA alternative calculations, then that could be a pathway under this HB 3215.
And the other thing is the raters can help you go through that because their software were able to do that UA calculations.
And I see another, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sloan.
Oh, I was just going to read another question if y'all are done. Does this designation replace the need to have the IECC residential energy inspector?
It creates another path. There is still individuals that are, I think you're referring to the designation IECC HERS compliance specialist. You can still be certified by ICC from the thing you just mentioned to do all the other options in the code. But this designation will be required for you to do the energy index option because it has to be conducted by a certified rater. And a certified rate with this designation, those certified raters can also do the inspections and testing with this designation for the other paths that's in there. If you There's training going across the country all the time for raters. There's a lot more room for raters, and a lot of the training now is online. So you can go to our ResNet website and learn how you could become a certified rater.
We have a couple questions on here about the presentation materials. This presentation will be available on the TAB's YouTube channel. It's the Texas Builders YouTube channel. It will be available shortly. So another question that we have is where does HB 3215 set the requirements for who is allowed to perform the energy code test based on Texas law?
James, you would take a first shot, or you
I
want me to try?
mean, yeah, Connor sent in this message, and he said he got in a bit late, so he may have missed the portion about where they define in the Texas Building Energy Performance Standards. They define a code certified inspector, and so as long as it checks that off in tandem with, you know, being a HERS rater, then you can perform the necessary inspections and tests for fulfilling this pathway. It's been a long-standing definition into the state law that the code certified inspector has to be credentialed by ICC and all those other sunset organizations. That's just something that's been embedded in state law for decades now. That's always been the case. So that's pretty much the foundation of it. But if they want to demonstrate compliance with HB 3215, then a HERS rater credential would need to be part of the equation as well.
So another question we have, is there a form that a realtor can use when representing a buyer to qualify the rating of the builder's construction?
There is several reports that's produced as part of the rating process. The first one is called the preliminary rating, in which it does give the HERS score, the energy features of the home, and that gives that solid foundation by which a realtor or appraiser can look at the home. Then following that, though, as I mentioned previously in the presentation, there is the actual field inspection and testing comes place, and that provides a confirmed rating. So if you want to know what that is, you got several options. You can ask the builder to provide that to you when you're doing your appraisal or developing your realtor sales. Also, though, if you're an appraiser, as I mentioned before, ResNet has worked with the Appraisal Institute and created an appraiser portal that would allow you to find rated homes in your market, and then able to actually identify other homes with similar scores that you can gather market data on for the appraisal of the home.
Just to kind of dovetail on that, Steve, what's pretty common here in Texas is we, the rater, provide the builder with a projected HERS certificate. And then at the end of the process, we give them the confirmed HERS certificate. And that alone, if it's coming out of the HERS rating software, that gives the realtors a lot of ammunition that they need to be able to convey the energy efficiency features to their prospective buyers. It gives them all the components that go into the home that either directly or indirectly consume energy. It gives them the annual energy cost up front, so they can so that there's a prediction to the dollar on how much that home is going to cost to operate, as well as all the other parameters that are stated in the HERS rating certificate. So that alone right there is probably just a really good piece of documentation just to have at your disposal if you're on the realtor side of things and you're trying to convey this program to your prospective buyers.
Follow up on what James has said. That's what the benefits of the HERS index method is. It's not only used for code compliance and demonstrating code compliance, but also it is able to market your home, its energy performance and energy efficiency. And so these reports are really important for a realtor because you have a number of things you can use to be able to frame your discussion of the home. As you mentioned, the score, the energy savings, but it also gives a projected environmental savings that you can use to attract the new generation of home buyers that are entering the marketplace.
Are you ready for the next question?
Yes.
Okay. Have you or any of your raters created a HERS score equivalent for our local codes?
James?
A HERS score equivalent.
James, it's from Ray. If you Ray
Okay.
Tonjes in the chat in Austin.
So yeah, I mean there's no HERS score equivalent that's out there. To my knowledge, there's a bunch of ERIs. There's a bunch of energy rating index calculations that are in the marketplace currently. And so a HERS index is an ERI, but an ERI is not a HERS index. And the reason for that is because with the various editions of the energy code that are currently being practiced in the state of Texas, you got the 2015, that's your overlay, your state overlay code. You got the 2018, which some municipalities have or have adopted. And then you got the 2021 that municipalities are starting to adopt this year. All three of those have very different baseline parameters to calculate their energy rating index scores. And that was a big reason for this whole effort with HB 3215 was that if you're a builder that's building in multiple municipalities across the state of Texas, you're potentially having to build 3 different energy packages depending on what city you're building in. And so the demand for another universal pathway was bubbling about 18 months ago, because we saw this coming down the horizon. And so because all these other ERI scores were bubbling up and they have totally different baseline parameters versus the HERS index, it was time to introduce the HERS index as at least a mechanism for a universal pathway, because it has been used so widely across the state with many builders. It was due for its time to be at least a recognized pathway to comply with the energy code. But I think what Ray is referring to are the different ERIs that are embedded in the 15, the 18, and the 2021 IECC, and those have some substantial differences between those calculations and the HERS score calculations, some more so than others. So I hope that answers your question, Ray. If not, then we can have a discussion offline about it. I'm happy to answer any of your more technical questions on the matter.
Will cities be allowed to amend this new pathway?
To my understanding, no, because it is embedded into the state code as a universal. It's in the section of the code, subsection J, that's embedded as a universal pathway, identical to how Energy Star for homes is treated across the state. Now there is a city, to my knowledge, that probably disagrees with that, but I mean that's getting worked out right now between them and the state officials. But to my knowledge, the answer to that question is no, it cannot be amended, and at least not until the next legislative session.
That's true. When you look at the wording of the law, it does say it supersedes that. So it clearly, looking at the law, it show when you actually look at the language of it, I think it demonstrates what James just mentioned.
Does the law address remodels?
Potentially it could. I don't see it being a very practical solution for remodelers out in the Texas marketplace. We do a lot of remodel calculations ourselves in-house. It could certainly be an option. I'm not going to throw it out the door, but just based off practical knowledge and what we do on a day-to-day business with the remodel industry, I don't know that it's going to be like the lowest hanging fruit for that environment for the remodeler network in Texas.
Yeah, think about it. The average home that was built in 2006 was 100. Department of Energy stated that average resale home was a 130. And when you look at the code, the numbers put into the code for the HERS index, that's quite a leap that you have to get to those numbers. It's not impossible, but it's not probably going to be the most attractive.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're doing a complete gut rehab, you might have some potential to use this pathway. But outside of that, if you're just doing a kitchen and bath remodel, there's much easier pathways to demonstrate energy code compliance.
Okay. There is one. We build primarily in the country and rely on third-party inspectors for our inspections. My question is, who will enforce this on us since we rarely build in a jurisdiction that requires inspections?
Oh, I got the perfect answer for that. The people that are going to enforce that is going to be the ambulance chasing attorneys. We've seen it time and time again. When you build out in the county, you are required to build to the 2015 Energy Code. That is the state overlay code. There are some mechanisms to where you can self-certify if you just don't have third-party resources out in the county, but you're rolling the dice if you do not comply with the state overlay energy code, even if you are out in the county, and there is no local jurisdiction inspection enforcement out there. And we have seen it happen where there's the ambulance chasing attorneys come by and they want to know from the homeowner 2 years down the road how their energy bills are, and if there's a claim to be made, they will pursue it. So that's always been my bread and butter answer to that situation, because I've been down that road time and time again. And just because you're out in the county doesn't exempt you from all of these state provisions.
Have there been much communication with AHJs where construction is centralized?
Connor, you're going to have to elaborate on what an AHJ is. I'm not familiar with that acronym in my alphabet soup of vocabulary here. I know he's referring to San Antonio, Austin, Houston.
James, he said it is authorities having jurisdiction.
Has there been much communication with authorities having jurisdictions where construction is centralized? Still gonna have to get some more.
James, maybe
Connor, you're gonna have to email me, man, because I don't know what the specific question is. I'm sorry, man. That all of these major municipalities that you're listing in your question, Connor, they all know of this piece of legislation and recognize it. The one AUS right there, that's the one that I mentioned before that has some contention points with it, but they're Austin, and they tend to beat to their own drum. But everybody else knows what this House bill entails, and that it should be recognized statewide. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, then you know where to find me to get some answers.
Okay, you mentioned a 2006 code house had a HERS rating of 100. If we have been using a res check and following a 2018 IECC, how does that correlate? What HERS score equivalency is that?
Well, it depends. There's no one-to-one direct correlation, because the res check does not ask all the information that's contained in a HERS index. But it gives you a sense of what I said, is that it's the reference home is based upon that. And when you see reports from the Department of Energy, because each code cycle, they have to report what the percentile improvement is over time. I think you can use that to give a basis of calculating what the percentile is greater than each version of the code is versus the 2006.
So just speaking from a day-to-day practitioner standpoint, because we see plenty of res checks demonstrating 2018 compliance, and we've done plenty of 2018 energy code calculations with the HERS index. If you're building a house with the res check that demonstrates 2018 IECC compliance, you could probably range that HERS score equivalent somewhere in the 60 to 70 range. Is a safe ballpark. You might see some, depending on the size and number of bedrooms and whatnot, you might see some in the high 50s HERS score, but I'd say that's a pretty safe range. But your HERS rater is definitely going to be able to give you that insight once they've had a chance to look at the plans, run the takeoffs, insert the spec information into the models, and then kind of give you that side-by-side comparison.
Does HERS integrate into TDLR approved modular prefab construction?
You're able to do a HERS index score, but modular manufactured homes has its own energy code. It's not covered by the IECC, but there are you can do HERS ratings on those homes.
When will the new House bill go into effect? Need to see an actual example that shows different elements of construction and how it contributes to the min HERS rating targets we are gearing towards.
So the House bill is already in effect. In a way to demonstrate compliance with that, and this kind of addresses some other questions in the chat box regarding approved software that can demonstrate compliance. So let's say, for example, Ecotrope is the software you're using for demonstrating both code compliance and getting your HERS rating. Then what the cities are going to look for is that projected HERS certificate demonstrating that it meets the benchmarks of this House bill, which currently today is a 63, but later on this year will be a 59. And in addition to that, attaching the 2018 IACC compliance report, which demonstrates the compliance with the building envelope provisions and mandatory requirements on here. And that's just a straight up 2018 IACC compliance report. It's not the 2018 ERI report that is embedded in that HERS software. I think that addressed another question in the chat box. You're looking for a different type of report, but those mechanisms are already in existence. And that was a big reason for this legislation, because we didn't want to go back to the software providers and have them reinvent the wheel just to demonstrate compliance with this. So those are the two reports that a city is going to be looking for to demonstrate compliance with HB 3215.
And we're going to be working with the certified accredited software programs and producing a specific Texas report that has the information those code officials will be looking like, and that the rating software can then spill that out. That makes it very simple for you to provide it as a rater or as a builder to present to the code official, and it uniform enough that the code official can be comfortable with it.
How, if at all, does the HERS score requirements change based off of the size of a home? For example, if a 4,500 square foot home needs the same square foot as a 1,800 square foot home.
How the HERS index works is the home is compared to itself. So in other words, the size of the home is going to affect how much energy you use. But what the HERS rating will do is compare the home features to the reference home, and then compare the differences it is with the rated homes.
So Nick is asking if a 4,500 square foot home would need the same score as an 1,800 square foot home under this House bill. And the answer to that question is yes. These scores are indiscriminate of size and number of bedrooms. It's just kind of a one size fits all approach. I will tell you that just based off of our daily workings within HERS ratings and energy code calculations, HERS scores they lower a lot quicker on the larger homes because of the opportunity for savings is larger on a larger home versus a smaller home. An 1,800 square foot home is theoretically, if it's code compliant, it's only going to consume so much energy. Whereas a 4,500 square foot home has the potential to consume a whole lot more energy when even with the same energy efficiency features installed in the home. So if you ratchet it down on the bigger home, you get more bang for your buck on a HERS rating standpoint versus the 1,800 square foot home, if that makes sense.
But there's no discrimination in scoring by the size of the home.
James, we have had a couple people ask for your contact information for further questions. Would it be okay if I share your email in the chat?
Please do.
Yeah, that's fine with me too as well. Sorry, I was spaced out there. As long as it's
Okay.
not my cell phone. I don't want my cell phone blowing up in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, I don't see any more questions. So that, if no one has any more questions, that is it for this Zoom at noon. If I wanted to thank everyone today. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, James. And thank you, Fox Energy Specialist, for sponsoring this Zoom at noon. This presentation will be emailed out to everyone who registered and will be on the Texas Builders YouTube page shortly. And thank you everyone for participating. And thank you again, Steve and James and Fox Energy Specialist.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
You too.